The plains shimmered under the weight of noon. Heat rose in silver ribbons, twisting the line between earth and sky. For the first time in her life, the cheetah did not chase. She stood alone, the wind brushing through the sparse grass, her sides heaving from a run that hadn't ended with a kill. Dust clung to her coat, her heartbeat echoing through her ribs like thunder trapped in bone. Before her stretched an ocean of yellow and light. The horizon, once a promise, now a taunt. It used to move with her, it used to run, but now it stood still, watching. The gazelle had escaped. Not far, but far enough. She could still smell its sweat on the wind, feel the ghost of its shadow flickering beside her. But the chase had ended. Her legs burned, her breath was shallow. For the first time, she had stopped before the horizon did. She turned her head, scanning the emptiness. The other cheetahs were gone. The land was wide and raw, dotted with bones half buried in dust. A few vultures wheeled above the carcass of something long dead. Maybe hers, maybe not. It didn't matter. The savannah never remembered the difference. She lowered herself into the grass and closed her eyes. The air hummed with heat and insects. A fly landed on her nose. She didn't bother to move. Once she had been the wind. The others used to say that the land itself bent for her, that the horizon waited for her paws to reach it before slipping farther away. But time runs too, and it never tires. Her stomach growled, a dry, hollow sound. She lifted her head and licked her lips, tasting only dust. In the distance, the wind shifted, carrying not prey, but a new scent. Smoke. Faint. Human. Unnatural. She raised her head higher, eyes narrowing. Beyond the flatlands, where the grass turned gray, the air trembled with the shimmer of fire. Men. She rose slowly, her muscles trembling with exhaustion. The wind pushed against her, heavy with ash and change. She took one step forward, then stopped again. Her paws sank into the warm earth. She looked at the horizon once more. That thin golden line where the sky met everything that was once hers. It didn't move. And for the first time in her life, neither did she. By the time the sun began to sink, the wind had changed completely. It no longer smelled of dust and life, only smoke and metal. The cheetah's ears twitched as the sound of crackling reached her, faint at first, then growing, pulsing like distant rain. She began to move, slowly at first, one paw dragging slightly through the dirt, then faster, until her muscles remembered what it meant to run. But this time, she wasn't chasing. She was fleeing, or perhaps following. The horizon flickered. The golden plains she had known her whole life were burning. The fire crawled across the land in uneven tongues of orange and gray, devouring everything that couldn't move. It leapt through dry grass, roared across hollow trees, and chased the wind with hunger only nature could teach. The cheetah ran alongside it for a while, not close enough to touch the flame, but close enough to feel its heat claw at her sides. She could see small shapes darting away in the distance. Antelope, hares, even birds too tired to fly. Every living thing had lost direction. The ground cracked under her paws, hot and uneven. Her lungs burned. She slowed, not from choice but from pain, and stopped at a rise of land where the wind shifted cooler. The fire was still far but moving fast. And then she saw them. Men, 4 of them, silhouettes against the glow, their bodies small but sure. They carried something that gleamed in the dying light. Long, straight, deliberate. They were not running from the fire. They were walking toward it. The cheetah crouched low, her belly to the ground. She watched them move with a rhythm she didn't understand, controlled, calm, unafraid of the chaos they were surrounded by. Then one of them stopped, raised his arm, and the others did the same. A burst of noise split the air, sharper than thunder, faster than lightning. She flinched, ears pressed flat, eyes wide. The fire jumped. She didn't understand what they'd done, but the world shifted in response. A part of the flame died suddenly, as if ordered to stop. Smoke thickened, the smell sharper now, almost bitter. The men shouted something, then disappeared into the haze. The cheetah stayed still long after they were gone. The fire crept closer again, patient, defiant. It wasn't done. She turned away, limping toward the edge of the plain, where the burned grass met the untouched. The soil there was black and soft. She could feel the pulse of the ground beneath her paws. Faint, hot, alive, but wounded. The wind picked up again, carrying ash and the scent of fear. Not hers, but the land's. When she looked back, the horizon no longer shimmered gold. It glowed red, and though the fire ran faster than she ever could, the cheetah finally understood. Speed meant nothing if there was nowhere left to run to. Night fell in colors the cheetah didn't recognize. Black mixed with ember, red painted across the horizon where the grass once waved. The sky wasn't sky anymore. It was smoke stretching upward, erasing the stars. She climbed the low hill that rose above the burning plain. Her paws slid through ash, her breath rasped like gravel. The world below was a mirror of chaos, fire eating its own reflection, wind pushing it toward the horizon as if trying to erase everything that remembered running. And then she heard it, a sound too small for this world of destruction, a high, soft cry, weak but living. She froze. The wind shifted, bringing with it the scent of fear. Not prey, not grown, young. The cheetah turned her head sharply, scanning the blackened grass. There, near the remains of a fallen tree, a small movement. She descended the hill in silence, each step careful, the ash crunching softly beneath her pads. It was a cub, thin, trembling, its fur dark with soot, its spots barely visible. Its eyes were wide and unfocused, flicking between the flames and her approaching shape. It made no sound now, only shook, too exhausted even for fear. The cheetah stopped a few paces away. She could smell the burnt earth, the faint sweetness of milk still on its breath. It was alone, no scent of mother, no trace of others. She waited. The cub tried to stand but collapsed back into the dirt. Its chest moved fast, frantic, but its limbs wouldn't obey. The fire crackled behind them, inching closer, whispering through the grass like a warning. The cheetah hesitated. She had never raised another's young. Her kind didn't mourn. They survived. Yet something deep in her chest twisted as she looked at the tiny shape gasping in the glow. The cub lifted its head once more and made a sound. Faint, broken, a cry without breath. Then, it lowered its head and went still. She stepped closer, nuzzled it with her nose. Its body was warm but fading. She nudged again. No movement. The wind carried the scent of ash into her fur. Behind her, the fire advanced. The cheetah turned her body, shielding the cub with her flank. She crouched low, curling around it as the smoke rolled past. Heat brushed her face, but she didn't move. The world hissed and glowed and cracked, and still she stayed there, a shadow within a brighter one. When the fire finally passed, it left silence, the kind that burns even after sound is gone. The air was thick with the smell of rain that hadn't yet fallen. The ground steamed. The cheetah lifted her head and looked toward the horizon. It had gone dark again, the color of sleep. She stood slowly. The cub's body lay still, half buried in soot. She watched it for a long time, then turned away. The hill stood behind her, scarred and black, but still holding its shape. From its peak, the burned plains glimmered faintly, as if remembering their light. The cheetah climbed it again, step by step, until she reached the top. The wind met her there, cool and trembling. Below, the fire's trail stretched for miles, a wound across the land. Beyond it, the horizon had gone gray, stripped of its gold. She lay down on the hilltop, her eyes half closed. Her sides rose and fell slowly. The plains were still, but not dead. Somewhere beneath the ash, the first green roots were already waiting for their chance to breathe. The cheetah didn't know that, but she felt it, a pulse under the ground, faint but steady. And as she rested, the horizon seemed to pause, as though unsure whether to keep running without her. The night stretched long and silent over the savannah. The fire was gone, but its memory lingered, a red haze still clinging to the air, the ground breathing smoke through every crack. The cheetah lay on the hilltop, her body coated in ash, her breath slow but alive. The scent of death was everywhere, heavy but fading. Beneath it, faint and strange, came something new, damp earth. Rain was coming, she could smell it, but the sky still refused to move. When the first light came, it was dull and gray, filtered through layers of smoke and dust. The sun, once sharp and golden, looked tired. It rose without conviction, casting a pale glow over what had survived. The plains below were unrecognizable. Blackened trees stood like bones, their shadows stretching across the dead grass. The fire had spared nothing except the stones, but between those stones, thin threads of green already pushed upward, trembling in the breeze. Life, stubborn and small, refusing to vanish. The cheetah rose to her feet, muscles stiff. Her ribs showed beneath her coat. Hunger had hollowed her, but she moved with the same quiet grace, deliberate, unbroken. She descended the hill slowly, following the faint scent of water. The air was thick with smoke and silence. Every sound seemed hesitant, as if the world itself wasn't sure it was allowed to speak again. At the base of the hill, she found what she was looking for, a shallow depression where rain once pooled. The ground was still damp, slick with soot and traces of life. She lowered her head and licked at it, her tongue coming away black, but it was enough. Then she stopped. A sound. Soft. Delicate. The flutter of wings. She looked up. A bird, small, gray, its feathers charred at the edges, landed on a burnt branch nearby. It cocked its head and watched her. For a moment, they both stood still, creatures made cautious by survival. The bird called once, a thin, rasping note, more memory than song. The cheetah blinked. Then, slowly, it took off again, vanishing into the smoky sky. She watched it go. Above, the clouds shifted. A drop of water fell, heavy, uncertain, and hit her nose. Another followed. Then another. The rain began not with a storm, but with hesitation. It pattered softly at first, cooling the ashes, spreading thin rivers down the blackened slope. Steam rose from the earth. The cheetah closed her eyes and tilted her head upward, letting the water run over her face. The plains began to whisper. Tiny sounds of relief, of soil drinking what it had lost. The cheetah stood there, still as a statue, as the rain grew stronger. Her fur darkened, her scent washed clean. She opened her mouth slightly, tasting the water. It carried the memory of distance, mountains, clouds, time. When she looked back toward the horizon, it was moving again. Not running, not fleeing, but breathing. For the first time since the fire, the world around her seemed to remember itself. And though she was alone, she no longer felt like the last living thing. By the next morning, the rain had stopped. The sky cleared, a pale blue stretched thin over the reborn land. Mist hung low to the ground, curling around charred tree trunks and glistening stones. The savanna smelled different now, clean, raw, unsteady. The cheetah moved through it like a ghost. Her paws sank softly into the damp soil, leaving deep impressions that filled slowly with rainwater. Each step made a faint sound, the sound of the earth remembering how to live again. She followed the river's new path, tracing it where it carved through the ashes. Fish would not return yet, nor would the gazelle. But water meant movement, and movement meant hope. She would wait. It was then that she heard the click. Soft, precise, out of place. The cheetah froze. Her head turned sharply, ears twitching toward the sound. The wind carried it again, faint metal, human. She crouched low, muscles tensing. The memory of the fire still lived inside her. Smoke, shouting, men who walked into flames without fear. She remembered their weapons, their noise. She had learned what human scent meant. Control, chaos, danger. And now, that scent was back. Across the slope, half hidden behind a cluster of burnt acacias, a man knelt in the mud. His clothes were torn, dark with soot and rain, his hands steady despite the tremor in his breath. A camera hung around his neck, its lens long and black, glinting softly in the new light. He didn't move. Neither did she. Through the glass, he watched her. The golden fur streaked with ash, the long limbs trembling with exhaustion, but not fear. The cheetah's eyes met his. For a heartbeat, the world held perfectly still, as if even the wind refused to interfere. He lowered the camera slowly, no sudden movement. Just a man, quiet and small, staring at something larger than himself. The cheetah tilted her head. Her tail flicked once. She took a step forward. The man inhaled sharply. He wanted to raise the camera again. Instinct, habit, but something stopped him. Maybe the look in her eyes? Maybe the realization that he wasn't seeing an animal. He was seeing endurance, the Earth's memory of speed, slowed but unbroken. She stopped 10 paces away, close enough that he could see the burn marks along her flank, the faint shimmer of water on her fur. She looked at him, then past him, toward the horizon. It was strange. The horizon looked closer now, softer. The line that had once taunted her no longer seemed to run away. The man raised his camera once more, gently. The shutter clicked. One sound, clean, respectful. The cheetah blinked, unafraid. She turned her head back toward the open plain and began to walk away, her body moving with that same quiet grace, that unteachable rhythm of purpose. The man lowered the camera and exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and apology. When he looked through the lens again, she was already gone, a pale shape melting into the new green, her prints filling slowly with water behind her. He took one last photograph of the empty horizon. In it, the land looked alive again, the light soft, the soil breathing. And if you looked closely, at the farthest edge of the frame, you could almost see movement. Not running, just waiting.